Welcome everyone. So just before we start, let's take a moment of silence to get ourselves fully within in the here and now. Invoking Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's presence. So today I thought we can maybe begin with, so we had a couple of videos last time to see, get in touch with Pavitra Das personality. It was just like a tip of the iceberg only. But I thought we can maybe today start getting in touch with this book. It's called Conversations with Sri Aurobindo. And as I was sharing last time, that I have found this book very, very helpful in the sense of the inner ascent that we have to make. And that also knowing that there are always, always, always difficulties, even with the best of the sadhaks. And yet we have to transcend those difficulties, and it is possible to transcend. So we can just kind of randomly go through these conversations, which, as I was sharing, that specifically the ascension of the being, so placing our attention, say, above the head, you know, because usually we are lodged in the brain, lodged consciousness, in the sense mind, किसने क्या बोला, किसने क्या 5 साल पहले कहा था, है ना, उसका मतलब क्या है, जो अभी बातें चल रही है उसका मतलब क्या है. सो ऑल दैट इज द ब्रेन लॉज्ड कॉन्शियसनेस that is here in the earthly mortal frame. But slowly, as we go ahead, we have to transcend, because remaining here, we will not be able to transcend this. So we have to change the plane of our being. We have to go above. So in Pavitra Das experiences, which he continually shared with Sri Aurobindo and asked for lots of suggestions, we see that he was trying to do that, and Sri Aurobindo was guiding him on that, and that this is one of the ways also to ascend and to then bring that higher light. So that's why I thought it would be nice for us to read some bit of this. So let's just go through and enjoy the conversation. So Friday, December 18, 1925. So this is one of those initial conversations scenes. Yeah, if anyone feels like reading, please unmute at any moment of time and go ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
Just read until where I can, or
You can read it full. There's one page. You can,
sure.
or if you want to take a pause between, you take. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Friday, December 18, 1925. Your going back to France at the moment would be a defeat. You would fall off from the state of consciousness of which you have caught a glimpse. It could even be worse. Perhaps after a few years, you would get over it. But in any case, you would be missing an opportunity and failing in what you have to do. You bring a sincerity of heart in your search and the aptitude of your mind for learning, for reserving your judgment. But your mental activity is harmful. You must make your mind silent. A new consciousness is seeking expression in you. There are in India people, yogis, who can help you in this and give you a new birth. But there will be some difficulties in finding them, for you do not speak their language and they are often hard of access. This, however, is one of the solutions before you. The spiritual consciousness will give you mukti. Personally, my yoga would be finished if my goal were liberation. Mukti is only the first part. The second is to bring down the light into all the instruments to make them perfect and to become the embodiment of truth. The universal truth and power will then act through you and by your instrumentation. It is true that people are more or less unconscious instruments of the Shakti, but it is a question of remaining perfectly conscious. This perfection of man is difficult, very, very difficult, and it is a lifetime's work. One may fail and make a mess of one's life. It is in fact so hard that I do not advise anyone to take this path. However, there is a powerful aspiration in you and something which is seeking to come down. So I put this ideal before you. If you choose if you choose it, remain here with us and see what I can give you and what you can take from me before going farther. Thank you.
So, here we see one of the first thing that we can see is that it is not key. Okay, once I have decided that I'm going to be with Sri Aurobindo, then, it's even for the best of sadhaks, it is not like they never thought of leaving that place. They did, because it's always very, very difficult, to choose the higher is always difficult for us because we are steeped in ignorance and darkness. So तरह तरह के ख्याल आते हैं, like here, he is now thinking that should I go back to France, and Sri Aurobindo says that if you do that, which of course you can do, uh, then you will maybe lose an opportunity which is waiting for you here. And also that, as I was sharing earlier, that he was he had a very stable and calm vital, but mentally it was very challenging for him because he had a very active mental all the time. So we see Sri Aurobindo saying that, but your mental activity is harmful. You must make your mind silent. And then we also see the aspects of first liberation from the knot of little me, and then to bring down. So liberation happens when we kind of, relatively are free of that knot of egoism which troubles us so much and makes us uneasy all the time. So first liberation from that plane, a kind of an ascension, and not only ascension कि वहां से निकल के कहीं आप बैठे हैं बड़ी मंत्रमुग्ध अवस्था में, but to have to bring that light down. So that also part we see, the ascent and the descent both we see here. The second is to bring down the light into all instruments, to make them perfect and to become the embodiment of truth. So this is what the task is. And right now, our mental, the thoughts and feelings and the sense perceptions, they are all distorted. But they don't have to remain distorted. They will resonate with something higher if we bring something higher in them. If they get a new taste, and towards the end, we see that it's not an easy path. So this perfection of man is difficult, very, very difficult, and it is a lifetime's work. One may fail and make a mess of one's life, and it is in fact so hard that I do not advise anyone to take this path. However, there is a powerful aspiration in you and something which is seeking to come down. Yeah. So then one makes a choice. Yes. Anything here? Anyone?
Yeah, Monica, this
Yeah.
mukti is the only first part. The second is to bring down the light into all the instruments to make them perfect and to become the embodiment of truth.
Hmm.
Here, what does Sri Aurobindo mean, Monica? Mukti is only first part.
Yes. See, mukti basically, again, we can talk about it in several terms. Mukti is losing completely the taste of this ego consciousness. Completely. Hmm? So you are not on that plane anymore. Nothing in you is resonating or vibrating with that plane anymore. This we see when we see, say, Ashwapati's yoga or Savitri's yoga. We see, this liberation from that lower self. And one example can be that, say, there are several planes in our being, right? Like as if there are several floors in an apartment, and on the plane where we mostly live is called the plane of ordinary consciousness, right? We are bound with our senses, we are bound with our interpreting mind, and that is what I believe to be true, and that is my normal life. That is my plane of existence usually. Now here mukti also means that you change the plane of existence. Now you are not on that plane of ordinary consciousness anymore. So you go above, you travel above, and as we talk about placing the attention, and not only placing it for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, after that we get tired, but staying there all the time. So, but Sri Aurobindo says that staying there all the time is not sufficient in this yoga, because once you go there, you have the taste of above. You have to come back because you have to bring that light and new taste to the instrument. Where is the instrument? You come back again to the ego self, to the ordinary consciousness, which is not gone anywhere. Although you have lost the taste of it, but it is here. The instrument is right here with us, but that has its old previous tastes which are bad tastes. Now they will begin to resonate with the taste of the higher. So that would be the descent, that. And one example, if you remember, I had shared that imagine that I am going to Ladakh from Delhi, but the moment I reach Ladakh, I don't stay there. I come back to Delhi immediately with the return flight. Hmm? So when you go to Ladakh, what do they say? They say that you have to acclimatize your body for 72 hours, means 3 days. You don't have to exert yourself. Very easy, relax, do very little work, don't exert yourself and body, eat and rest and whatever, so that the body becomes acclimatized to that new air, the thin air, the fresh air or the high altitude with less oxygen. So what I am doing, I am going, taking a flight, going to Ladakh, but in few hours I am coming back. Then I am again going to Ladakh, then in few hours I am again going back to Delhi. So the body doesn't feel the need for acclimatization. Why should the body adapt when I am not staying in Ladakh? So the body won't feel the need कि भैया इसको तो जरूरत नहीं है, कभी ये दिल्ली जाती है, कभी ये लद्दाख आती है, मतलब एक कंफ्यूज, करूँ तो क्या करूँ, इसको ऐसे ही छोड़ दो, बीच में छोड़ दो. So transformation, which Sri Aurobindo talks, the descent of that higher consciousness, that comes later. First, we have to get attuned to the higher. So that is mukti. That you stay in Ladakh and you just keep staying in Ladakh. You keep staying in Ladakh. You keep staying in Ladakh. Now the body will feel the need to change, to acclimatize to the new air, thin air, क्योंकि उसको अब पता लगेगा भाई इसको तो अब यहीं रहना है, तो अब इसके हिसाब से बॉडी को ट्यून करना पड़ेगा, एडजस्ट करना पड़ेगा. So it takes time and it gets acclimatized. We all know that, and then we feel fine after a few days. But we are not there. What we do is that because of our old and bad tastes, we will have a glimpse of the higher in our meditative state. We will stay above for some time. But very soon, something, as Jagan was sharing that day, something of Savitri, it pulls us down. Our older pattern will pull us down. And it is not that the pulling is bad. Pulling will be there, but the problem is that I buy into its dictates. I believe into its promises. I fuel those patterns. What will happen if I am pulled down but I give it higher light? Then it has the ability to change itself. But I don't do that. I become the lower pattern. So for a very, very long time, we don't leave our bad tastes. So we don't have mukti also. मुक्ति उन लोगों की हो पाई है जो बहुत ज्यादा तड़पे हैं. जब हमको तड़प नहीं है, when there is hardly any suffering on that first floor of ego consciousness, and I am easily breathing, अरे सब ठीक ही तो है, I am not choking myself, ऐसा नहीं है कि breathe नहीं कर पा रही, why would I change? Why would I change the floor? So that is why we see that mukti or true liberation has happened for a very few people. Those who have really kind of have suffered through the ego consciousness and they have decided for myself कि भैया माफ करो, ऐसे नहीं जिया जा सकता. So you find a plane in your consciousness where you are liberated of that ego self and the grip of this ordinary consciousness, and then slowly you can change the instrument with that higher light. That's why he says in the last that it's a very difficult process, all of it, because mostly we don't suffer that much. We get used to our suffering, that everybody is suffering this much or that much, what's the problem in me suffering? I can suffer also, life is suffering. So I get used to suffering. And that is why one of the masters, Acharya Pradyuman, he says that it's only few Buddhas or seers or yogis who say that even little bit of suffering I can't endure. How is this there? Then they search for something which is free of suffering and they find it. And that is what they teach us, that it is possible to have the end of suffering and to have a life which is a better quality of life and even further, a diviner life. So these are a few ways in which we can talk of it.
Thank you, Monica. This Delhi Ladakh, that example is very, very nice. Able to connect with it better.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Yeah, that example is exactly how it feels. Lack of breath is how it feels. Yeah. Especially in the beginning of meditation, when the mind, when the mind is being asked to calm down, there is this exact feeling of breathlessness, and the being tries to come back from Ladakh to Delhi, Ladakh to Hyderabad, anywhere, but it does try to come back. So, yeah, thank you for that amazing example.
It's very interesting to know that these kind of lines are also there in Savitri. One of those lines that I can remember is that for this mortality bears ill heaven's touch. So the purer Ladakhi air we can't tolerate, as Jagan was sharing. And very soon, again in Ashwapati's yoga, we will see very soon the neither members, the body, thoughts, feelings, and the sensation, they get tired of too much ecstasy. They can't handle it. And what they want back is the same old joys and the same old pain. We can't handle that much of joy. The instrument is not ready. Then later on, we also have another line, something like that heavenlier air, you can't breathe it. It's just too much for you. So those kind of lines come in Savitri, that how, because of our weakness of the instrument, which is mind, emotions, and the body, it happens in degrees. it can't happen like that, one day and suddenly everything converts. Can't happen like that. Yeah. Yes. So this is again very consoling for each one of us, because whenever we feel that, oh, it's taking too much of a time, or where have I reached, this line, that knowing that it's a very long and arduous journey, we can just get on the path and dust off our pants and get on again. Not to say that I can't do it and it's just too much. It's too much for each one of us. That's why in Savitri he says that when this heavenlier touch is there, it's like a torture unbearable to the mortal heart. But the fiery spirit grows with every titan pang. So it is a pang. For each one of us, it is a pang. But the fiery spirit grows with each titan pang. Yeah, so then we can take something more. Yes, let's see. This is also very beautiful. So Sunday, December 20, 1925. Let's read this. We can take it bit by bit also. It's a longer one. Yeah, if anyone would like to read, please.
Yeah, Monica, I'll read. Sunday, December 20th, 1925. There is in us a region which is above space and time, immobile, immutable at first. It does not participate in the waves of emotions and thoughts. The first step is to center one's consciousness in this region and keep it there. This is mukti. In us, beyond our personality, the Purusha is seen with many attributes which are successively unveiled.
So here you also see, Sardaji, that he talks about the same thing that you were asking.
Yeah.
Changing one's plane of consciousness where one lives. The first step is to center one's consciousness in this region and keep it there. This is where we time and again fail, that we are not able to keep it there. Something from below calls and we fall down again on the lower floor. Yeah.
In us, beyond our personality, the Purusha is seen with many attributes which are successively unveiled. First of all, he appears as the witness of actions and sensations, untouched, unalterable. Then he manifests as the giver of sanctions. He approves or refuses his consent to a moment of prakriti, desire or thought or even action. When such an order is given, as for instance, the refusal to take part in a certain emotion, though the past is yet strong, the being turns away from that emotion. So this is also the continuation, right?
Yes.
Just now what we discussed.
Yes, we can just take a pause here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Monica, I'll read this passage one more time.
Please do that.
Yeah. Then he manifests as a giver of sanctions. He approves or refuses his consent to to a movement of prakriti, desire or thought or even action. When such an order is given, as for instance, the refusal to take part in a certain emotion, though the past is yet strong, the being turns away from that emotion. Beautifully given. This is what we often do.
Yes.
Thank you.
So he says that when we try to do this stepping back from our ego consciousness, when we are aspiring for a mukti of a certain degree, not fully, but to a certain degree, then he says that, so either we do it like stepping back in the horizontal, we just do it like witnessing of it, or we also can ascend above. Both can be done. So he says that when we do that, then we see that beyond our personality, which is the surface persona, the mask, the surface feelings, emotions, thoughts, the bundle of feelings and emotions that we are, Purusha is seen. Purusha means that somebody who is watching. There is a watcher, there is a knower, a consciousness is seen. And he says that it's not just like it's plain just consciousness, but it's with attributes which are successively unveiled. In degrees we get to know about it. So first of all, what are we able to see? That there is something in me who is watching. When we are able to step back, the witness of actions and sensations. But this witness itself is not disturbed. Even in the worst of pain or grief, the witness is not disturbed. In the worst of the tragedy, the witness is not disturbed. So untouched, unalterable. He is always the silent spectator. Then, once this is revealed to us that there is a witness, then he manifests. So, with consciousness comes Chit, Shakti. Chit is consciousness, Shakti is the force associated with it. There is a power associated with the consciousness. So, whenever to a certain degree we can see ourselves as the witness of the action, sensations, the thoughts, the feelings, then we also see that in many, many cases, not all at once, but in many, many cases, we will be able to stop ourselves from saying a certain word or doing something harmful, or seeing that no, this is not coming from the right center. Let me step back. Let me not take this action. So here we get force, we get power. Then he manifests as the giver of sanctions. That oh, earlier I had by default given it sanction. So by default I was just doing all the wrong things, evil things that I felt was okay to do. They were not negative. I felt okay. Let me do all of these. But now when say it is bringing us pain or suffering or turmoil, we step back because of that, and we see that I don't need to do that again and again. Why am I doing that again and again? So, giver of sanction, that if I stop the sanction, that old pattern does not have the power over me. I am the one which is giving it fuel and petrol every time it comes to my door. No? So I am the giver of sanction as a witness. He approves or refuses his consent to a movement of Prakriti, which can be desire, which can be thought, which can be feeling, emotions, moods, anything, even action. When such an order is given, as for instance, the refusal to take part in a certain emotion. So I am seeing that I have done this enough. I don't want to do this anymore. Because of this witnessing, I am able to see that. So I refuse to take part in it. I don't get in the drama of my mood. I refused it because I've done that enough. So, refusal to take part in a certain emotion, though the past is yet strong. ऐसा नहीं है कि अभी उसकी ग्रिप से पूरे निकल गए हैं, लेकिन कुछ नया करना चाह रहे हैं. We want to do something new. Then the being turns away from that emotion. This, as Sadhaji was sharing, that we have seen glimpses of that in our day-to-day life. We can do that. There are many instances that we are able to do that. And yet, having said that, there are also many, because of our weaknesses, we have not been able to do that. And that is part of the game. Slowly, 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 we gain enough strength that we are able to even do that where we are not able to do that right now. So these are the first two aspects of stepping back, or liberating ourselves from the knot of the ordinary ego steeped consciousness. So anything so far?
No, that line, that he approves or refuses his consent to a movement of Prakriti, desire or thought or even action. When such an order is given, as for instance, the refusal to take part in a certain emotion, um, though the past is yet strong, the being turns away from that emotion. I was asking this question about to again to Nirakar Bhai, to Nirakar uncle, about why this path is so painful. Yeah. I asked him, like, you were doing this for the last, I don't know, 30 plus years. Wasn't it painful to, to leave everything, to leave a nice job, to leave family members and to rent a place and establish a relic center and, sleep in that center when there is nobody around? Didn't you feel the pain? Didn't you feel all that? And he said, how he told me that how based on how strong your aspirations and your will to reach that point is how you see the journey. And he gave me this example. Just take 2 minutes. Akbar and Birbal and Akbar's whole, they were traveling with all the soldiers and everyone, and there was a river in the middle, and they couldn't cross the river. So Akbar said, like, why is this river here? And the villagers, like the people in his kingdom, they said, we requested you to build a bridge, but you did not build a bridge, and now we don't have a path. So everyone just sat by the river and they said, okay, what will we do now? We will drown in the river and all that. And Birbal, like the clever that he has, he comes up and he tells Akbar that, Shensaji, I know a shortcut, very beautiful shortcut. I will tell you about the shortcut, and I'll also guide you through that shortcut. And then he starts narrating the story while they keep on walking, and he keeps on telling, like, he's narrating the story about the shortcut, how beautiful the path is, how beautiful the jungle they are going to walk through. And everyone was concentrated on that story. And by the time the story ended, they were already in the city they wanted to reach. And now, although the path was the same, it didn't hurt them anymore. They crossed rivers, they crossed everything. So what he's telling me here is, if your goal is extremely strong, your willpower is extremely strong. Again, by saying this, I'm also in the path to discover this. I'm not saying I'm there yet. I'm also discovering this. But he said that if your goal is extremely strong, the path, even there are thorns on the path, you won't even feel it. So that particular line where it says it goes back, if the aspiration is really strong, that I want to be in that state of consciousness, then it'll keep on coming back, keep on coming back.
Yeah, anything more here? Anyone? We can see what he shares further, how it gets successively unveiled. So we can go further then. Yeah, who would like to go ahead?
If not anyone, I can go. Then Purusha is the knower, and in him is the knowledge. This knowledge has several forms. The lowest is intuition, then comes the knowledge in unity. In any case, the senses are no longer avenues of knowledge. It comes directly. Finally, Purusha reveals himself as Ishvara, the Lord, governing and acting through his instruments, he at last takes his kingdom in his hands. This is accomplished in two stages. At first, the contact is mental, zone of the spiritual mind, buddhi. Man recognizes his mind, his emotions, and his body as not himself. He feels himself existing above them, above the spatial and temporal form. He has peace and certitude.
Um, Let us take just one more paragraph, this one.
Sure. Yes. I'll just reread the last sentence one more time. He feels himself existing above them, above the spatial and temporal form. He has peace and certitude. To reach this, the first thing, and specifically for you, is to stop the thoughts at will. One must first separate oneself mentally from the mind, for one is not yet capable of doing it otherwise. Must look at it and study it. When that is done, it becomes easy to stop the thoughts. This is the first lesson of yoga. Thus, while sticking with you at this moment, I have no thoughts. I see what is around me, but without thinking, unless I want to do so and call the thought. When I began yoga, I went in search of Lele to ask him to help me. He ordered me to sit beside him and practice this mental separation. At the end of 3 days, I had succeeded and slain the thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so then we go to the third aspect of this unveiling, successive unveiling of the Purusha, his attributes, its attributes. Then Purusha is the knower and in him is the knowledge. तो अभी हमारी नॉलेज कैसे होती है? अभी हमारी नॉलेज सारी बाहर से आती है, एज इट थ्रू द सेंसेस वी अचीव नॉलेज. But as we progress on the path, he says, we may not be there, it's okay, but he says that that is how it happens, that we see ourselves as the knowledge knower and in him is the knowledge. अब बाहर से नहीं आ रही knowledge, there is a knowing which knows without using the sense perception. This knowledge has several forms. The lowest is intuition. So this intuition we all have glimpses of. When the mind is relatively quiet, suddenly there is a kind of a flash of intuition. You have an idea. We have in science, scientists, since they are trying to work on something, they calm down the mind and invite intuition, silence the mind at will and invite this higher intuition. And although this is higher for us, but it's the lowest, he says. The lowest is intuition, and then comes the knowledge in unity, which is further up, in the supermind, which we won't go there. In any case, the senses are no longer avenues of knowledge. So ऐसा नहीं है कि मैंने पढ़ा तो मुझे पता लगा, या मुझे किसी ने बताया तो मुझे पता लगा, मैंने कौन सी बुक में रिसर्च करी तो मुझे ये पता लगा, तो दिस इज माई नॉलेज. यूजुअली दिस इज हाउ वी गेन नॉलेज. हमने किसी की टॉक में कुछ सुना तो मुझे कुछ पता लगा. This is how usually our avenues of knowledge are, which are good enough because we are in ignorance and we need those windows towards light. But then as we progress in our path, then that is not enough. That is like a borrowed knowledge. Then we get the true knowledge, the true knowing. So he says that in any case, the senses are no longer the avenues of knowledge. It comes direct. There is a direct knowing. And at many cases in our normal human life also, we have this direct knowing that we suddenly know that, okay, this is what I have to do. You have not given it a logical thought, analytical thoughts. We just know you have to do this. So at times we get flashes of inspiration and intuition. And then he says that finally Purusha reveals himself as Ishvara, the Lord, governing and acting through his instruments. He at last takes his kingdom in his hand. But that's the final. We won't go there abhi ke liye. And then he says that this is accomplished in 2 stages. And first we have to do this neti, that I am not the thoughts, I am not the pain that I am feeling, I am not the suffering that I am feeling, I am the watcher of it. And we can do that. I have observed that even if at times, because of older patterns, I am feeling uneasy, there is a part in me that is very calm and quiet. I'm sure we must have seen this demarcation in ourselves at times, that because of older patterns who have not yet gone, there is still some unease that they bring, because we are not completely rid of them. But in that unease, there is a part in me which is totally calm and quiet and peaceful. So it means some disentanglement has happened. So man recognizes his mind, his emotions as his body and not himself. This niti, niti, niti. He feels himself existing above them. That although I am in pain right now, but I know I am okay. So that a little bit of separation is there. He has peace and certitude. And then he says that to reach this phase where you have peace and certitude and you see yourself existing as above the turmoil or the prakriti, movement of prakriti, you must be able to, at least in this case where his mind is very, very active, especially for you, one must be able to separate oneself mentally from the mind. So there are 2 aspects of the mind we can see. One aspect is the surface mind, which is always in turmoil. Chatter, 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 chatter. It is always commenting, it is always judging, it is always has views about whatever is happening. It can't even shut down at times at sleep. And when we get up from sleep, we see that the moment we get up, immediately those chatter thoughts we can see, we can observe. So there is this layer of the mind, the surface mind, which is always, it cannot stop. It toils like a machine, it cannot stop. This is the line Sri Aurobindo uses for the surface mind in Savitri. Now there is another aspect of mind which all of us are aware of, which is the consciousness. I'm looking at my thoughts. That's also the mental consciousness. I'm able to see my thoughts. That seeing is also an aspect of mind. That observing is also an aspect of mind. Jetsunma, in one of her talks, shares that first she talks about this surface mind, which we were talking, and then she says that this aspect of mind which is seeing, this is what we make use of when we are sitting for meditation and we want the mind to come back to breath again. So there is this aspect of mind which sees that, oh, it has slipped again in the thoughts, and it brings it back again on the breath. So it is this seeing aspect of the mind which does this work. Because without the seeing, I'm not aware where am I. But the moment I become aware, I can bring myself to breath, which is the present moment. So this aspect is also an aspect of mind. It is another level of mind. This is, she says that this is a little subtler consciousness. The grosser consciousness is all the senses and inputs and interpretations of the mind. That is, वो सबसे ज्यादा दिखता है ना? जो सबसे ज्यादा दिखता है वो है ग्रॉसर, और जो दिखता कम है और पकड़ में भी नहीं आता वो है थोड़ा सटल. अगरबत्ती का धुआं पकड़ में नहीं आता, अगरबत्ती पकड़ में आ जाती है ना. धुआं है सटल, आप उसको कोशिश करोगे ग्रिप करने की, आप नहीं कर पाओगे. We know that. But if I want to hold the agarbatti, I can hold it. So, grosser and subtle. So, this subtler consciousness, which is looking, which is the looker, and which can bring the mind, which if it gets strayed again from breath, it brings it back to the breath and to the present moment. That is the aspect of the mind, which is the observing aspect, the seeing aspect. So, this is what he shares, I believe, here, that this one. Yes. That at first this contact is mental, the zone of the spiritual mind, that man recognizes his mind, his emotions, his body as not himself. He feels himself existing above them. So when something in me is getting strayed, I am seeing that it is getting strayed. So I am not that getting strayed. I am something above it, separate from it. And that is why I can bring it together again, on the breath. So this we have to, uh, with sadhana, with practice, we have to work on it, and then it gets stronger and stronger, this disentangled aspect. And then he says, then we have to stop. It becomes easy to stop the thoughts then. One must separate oneself mentally from the mind, must look at it and study it. When that is done, it becomes easy to stop the thoughts. And then he shares his experience, that how when Lele said that I'm giving you 3 days and now completely, do this silencing of the mind. And Sri Aurobindo says that what he taught me was very helpful. In another anecdote, shares that experience, that he said that if ever any thought comes, you see it like a fly coming into your, like zone. You see it from coming from outside. Don't see it as part of yourself. तो जब खाने पे मक्खी आती है तो हम क्या करते हैं? हम मक्खी को उड़ा देते हैं, हम मक्खी को नहीं खा जाते. So that's what he said, that see the thoughts and these emotions or whatever come as coming from outside. They are extraneous material. They are kankar patthar. They are not part of you. And this is what Sri Aurobindo says that he worked upon. And within a day, actually, he was able to do that complete clarification and silencing of the mind. It's a good experiment, I would say. We must at times try our hand with it.
In the new Sri Aurobindo, the Dawn movie, they show this thing visually very beautifully. Yeah, if anyone wants to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think since it is all about these are practicing, whatever we are reading, these are all practices, and if we read too much in one chunk, then all goes in the background and we have nothing. So let us today, I think, amongst other takeaways that we may have, what he shares here, that to first step is mukti, and then it is the descent or the bringing down that light. But at least begin the first step. We all have begun it, I believe, to certain extent, but to strengthen the resolve further, to center our consciousness again and again in this region which is immutable, which is the watcher, and to, whenever we get a chance, to separate ourselves from the surface thought and emotions, and to center ourselves, say, on breath, and know ourselves as the knower of those surface movements. And then at various places we will get experiments to do, that we will have, whether I should give sanction to this or not. At times we may feel very, very weak, and we give the sanction without even knowing that I have given the sanction. When we are weak, that's how it happens. By default, it happens. But when we are a little stronger, then we are able to stop and not give the sanction which is harmful for us. So, any last comments here, anyone? All right. So let's then take a moment in silence before we close, to share and dedicate all this merit to innumerable sentient beings, near and far. May we all have the courage to use our pain, all the challenges and difficulties, to take them on the path and to strengthen ourselves in our true being. May we be able to use all those turmoils and difficulties for claiming back our true consciousness. And always, always trying to be away from the lower plane of the ego consciousness, which is never ever beneficial for anyone. May all of us have the strength to be able to do that. Thank you, everyone.